strap in. Today we're gonna talk about a little problem known as power creep, where the idea being proposed is that every new Legend Brawlhalla releases is getting more and more and more powerful, and thus the game's balance is gonna be thrown all out of whack, because it's a little bit more complicated than you might think. But first, let's get the big question out of the way. Is power creep real? Does it really exist? And the answer is yes. There is absolutely, undeniably, a level of power creep that Brawlhalla has been experiencing. I mean, it's no coincidence that the past 7 or so legends were pretty much universally deemed to be the best legends in the game on their release. Whether it's their stats or SIGs or some kind of new unique mechanic, something is definitely going on here, and people have taken notice. Look no further than 7, maybe the quintessential example of all of those, with a weapon combination that is brutal, a stat line that is absolutely insane, and then an additional set of 3 signatures on her spear. Something that no other legend in the entire game possesses. And for even more unique mechanics, even her seemingly ordinary signatures can have some pretty wonky interactions, because that down sig normally sends up. The last time I can remember a character coming out and them not instantly being deemed as Omega strong was Ezio. And that's a character that had a 2v2 infinite on release. So that tells you something. I mean, it doesn't tell you everything. It doesn't paint the full picture. It doesn't tell the whole story. But it does tell something, because right now I'm playing 7. I'm playing a 2-dex legend. And this is what I'm able to do. 2 decks on the stance I'm using, I should say. But even so, even if it was 3, even if it was 4, it is really fast for what this archetype is. What really inspired me to make this video was Imugi, and specifically y'all's comments on Imugi. Because Imugi was really the first time where I saw in my videos covering the new legend, those series, okay, blank might be a problem series name, where people are starting to go, why is he saying that every new legend is really, really strong? I got excited, I forgot to chase dodge. And the reasoning is really quite simple. It's simpler than you may think. It's because it's true. It's because it's true. The past 7 legends, like I'm saying, have pretty much been the best in the game. And Imugi, more than most, really does feel like a rung above his peers in many ways. He's supposed to be a really slow brute, but then he's got these rapid signatures that are really, really difficult to punish or are just really fast to come out. That one, it almost came out too fast for my liking. And it can kill, oh, I'm gonna hold this one, I'm gonna hold this one. Okay. That was a little evil, my bad. You start looking around at some other legends, some other SIGs, and wondering, why can't I do that? Why can't I fall through the map while having a giant hitbox around me and just sending your opponents flying towards the kill box with moves that are dealing near 30 damage each? But with all of that laid out, some of the facts, some of the background context, like, are those SIGs overtuned? Absolutely, 100% factually, yes. But at the same time, are these SIGs and really this new batch of characters as a whole pushing Brawlhalla in a direction that's completely game-breaking? I really don't think so. Which is why I said at the very beginning that things might be a little bit more complicated than they appear on the surface. I don't know what's happening there. Because it is very, very important to put all of this in a Brawlhalla context. I've mentioned this many times before, but Brawlhalla specifically is a game where the balance, contrary to what you might find on forums and posts everywhere, I might have just saved them, is an incredibly well-balanced game. The minimum floor for how bad something can be in Brawlhalla is very, very close to the high for how good they can be, at least relative to other games, because Brawlhalla shares so many mechanics between every character. Even if you had some hypothetical legend with the wimpiest SIGs in the world, and some hypothetical stat spread that's really, really suboptimal, and some weapon combo that theoretically really shouldn't work together, they'd still be good, because they still got the same dash speed, they got the same fall speed, they got the same jump height, the same dodge time, the same dodge timing, the same dodge cooldown, the same dodge distance, and maybe most importantly, the same basic weapon kits and the same unarmed kits, while we're at it, as their contemporaries. And that legend doesn't even exist. That's why tier lists from high-level Brawlhalla players often end at the lowest at B tier. Brawlhalla doesn't have anything akin to a C tier where someone is deemed as a liability for picking them, and certainly not something like, I probably should have enlighted, something like an F tier, where they're flat out stated to often be tournament unviable for competition. Look no further than a legend like Queen Nai, often touted as the worst in the game. Even to this day, in many conversations, people will say, yeah, Queen Nai, she's bad. But then it's important to remember that's bad in Brawlhalla terms. Bad is completely relative there, because we're not only talking about a character with some absolutely insane SIGs. I'm looking at you, Spear N-Sig. A SIG so good I made an entire dedicated video just to that, but a character that has reached the absolute upper echelon. We're talking the finals of major tournaments. So if that is the worst character in the game, Balance is in a pretty good spot, relatively speaking. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that certain things aren't stronger, and it doesn't mean that everything's perfect. I opened this video talking about how most recent legends are on another level, or were on their release, and Imugi right now is a force to be reckoned with. I really had that read, I should have done that the other way. But let's situate ourselves and stew in that for a little bit first, because I think that's helpful to remember when engaging in these types of conversations. So, with that said, is the power creep that we're experiencing in Brawlhalla relative terms a problem? And I'm thinking the answer is yes. Yes, I do think the power creep we're experiencing right now is an issue, but also not for the reasons that people are often citing. One of the most common things that I see is that new signatures are really overtuned because they have a lot of new mechanics that older legends don't. Therefore, older legends should get some kind of rework, some kind of boost, some kind of leg up, and change to their existing kits to make up for the difference that these newer legends get by having a lot more mechanics. This is also a really close game. It's getting down to the wire here. Arcadia, a lot more scarier, I'm thinking, because she's got a weapon, but if I can sidekick into this, if they do a bad Sarah or something, there's the Sarah, missed my chance. Okay, caught the backdash. I wasn't sure if that was going to hit far enough. But yes, back to that point, part of why I think this is a little flawed is that just because something has a unique mechanic, like this for example, having a hitbox on the jump up, which I hit the first time and then somehow missed it all the other times, doesn't automatically make it way better than other signatures that don't have that kind of effect. It makes it better than it would be if it didn't have it, but just because it has it doesn't necessarily mean it's incredible. And some other examples would be Vivi on the wall. If you hit her side sig on the wall, it hits upward, which really cool. When it came out, I was like, damn, that's pretty sick, but also much less usable than that one, this N-Sig, which has a different wall version that actually spikes. Way more useful on the ledge. So that's all to say, just because something has an additional use case doesn't automatically make it better than something that doesn't have that additional change in mechanic. Take, for example, this, which is Nash Side-Sig, which is an old character. Nash has been here since day one. This SIG is Omega broken. I mean, as is this one, and if we're gonna take a look at hitboxes, as is this one. This is looking like a beta hitbox right here. This is an older character, and yes, it's true that newer characters' SIGs are really good and new mechanics are part of what make them good. Something like that doesn't necessarily need a rework or an overhaul to be better just because it's simpler. It's actually kind of perfect I queued into Val, because Val's the first character in the game that had some of those unique mechanics. Her side sig on sword was the first one to have a different wall version and air version and ground version. So those unique mechanic differences can really be traced all the way back to her, if we're being serious, but I know that's not what people actually mean when they're saying that. I just thought it was interesting. So anyway, I think the real big issue with the power creep that we're experiencing is something that I kind of alluded to earlier. I'm talking about the mismatch between character archetypes and then their actual kits. I am so capable as a human being. I am strong, I am powerful. Imugi really is the perfect example, it doesn't work twice, to talk about, because he is the exact case where this is really obvious and apparent, which is that he is supposed to be the slowest, the actual best example of a brutish tank that we have in the game, especially because of his high strength. And again, he's literally a turtle. And yet, you have these SIGs that come out at Thea speed. When you look at Imugi, you can imagine a kit similar to Magyar, for example, another brute-based character. Don't know what happened there. Where those SIGs are slow and they're big commitments, but they also do hit hard. Magyar, by the way, bit of an aside. Another character that people often cite as the worst in the game. He's won a major tournament. Like, not even placed top 2, not even placed top 8, he's won. He's literally won. so I guess that goes to show the point even more. Everyone's viable. But instead, Imugi, as we can see on release, is hyperspeed. That guy is not a turtle at all. Seven, another perfect example. I mentioned this at the very beginning of the video. She's a slow legend. I was running 2 decks. She's a base 3 decks, also low speed. And she's got lightning fast SIGs, which you could say makes sense, because she's a mechanic that is designed a lightning speed weapon. But I mean, the lightning, especially on release, you had true combos upon true combos with that thing. It is still very, very crazy, and the fire is a whole nother deal. But regardless, that gap between archetype and in-game, very noticeable. On the other end of the spectrum, we can take a look at Thea, a character that has rapid speed signatures that don't really KO. Now, that wasn't the case on her release. She definitely KO'd way too early. But now I feel like, even though, don't get me wrong, her SIGs are kind of broken, and she's still really, really strong, it makes a lot more sense than it did. The rebalancing in the patches following Thea's release, while some may argue that it wasn't enough, many may argue it still isn't enough, it was in the right direction. Make it a little bit more punishable, make it weaker on hit so that even if you can spam them to no end, they're more like light attacks where they're not actually going to be KOing you super early. And that makes sense because that's what Thea's supposed to be. She's supposed to be this super fast attacker that may not deal the most amount of damage or force. So I think balance changes going more in that direction is something we can hopefully look forward to more in the future. Because I like having new mechanics. I love having new mechanics, actually. I think it's really great to show the devs' creativity, make every character feel more unique to play, because we do have all that crossover that helps with the balance, but also it can make characters feel a little homogenous, a little one note, that they don't have their individuality. So I think those mechanics are really great for that. And that doesn't mean we can't also have our cake and eat it too, because older legends can and have been getting reworked to upgrade, maybe change their mechanics, change their layouts, change their signatures a little bit. Most recently, for example, that Sentinel Hammer side sig proposed change. I actually don't even know if that's been in the game yet. But you can get a double swing with that one, and then the Cassidy Hammer down sig change swaps some things around while adding a new move. Those types of things are fantastic. I mean, it's exactly what I'm saying about giving characters identity. It's adding more identity onto existing characters. It's great. I would like to see changes that quote-unquote fit the character and what they're supposed to be. I know that's a kind of arbitrary thing regardless, but that would be nice, for Imugi especially. I'd be lying to you if I said he wasn't a ton of fun and that playing new broken characters isn't insanely fun for the first few weeks. But I do also recognize that it might not be the healthiest for the long term. Which is alright, because Brawlhalla is an ever-updating game, and it will update forever and ever, and will always be around. I do want to say, I recognize that this video might have been a little bit jumbled, maybe a little bit, maybe a tad. These 2:55 AM commentaries always tend to go that way in some way or another. It's just how the Kringus crumbles. So let me do a little bit of a quick recap for y'all, and then we can head out. Power creep is real, and it has been happening for every new Legend release for a long time. But it's not as bad as it's often made out to be, simply because Brawlhalla's balance as a whole is quite good, and the addition of new mechanics I think does more to help the game than it does to hurt it. The biggest things that I think could change to alleviate this problem is matching new Legend signatures more to their supposed archetype, and boosting up some older Legends to have unique mechanics to make them feel nice and fresh and like their own individual character. And finally, I didn't mention this earlier, but new Legend releases being broken, I really think it's fine. When you release something to the public, it's always going to be a little different than how it plays in-house or in dev testing, so I think we should give our BMG team a little bit of grace there, because end of the day, they're just people. Everyone that works on the game is just another human, you're just another human, and I am